In this chapter, we are looking at differentiation. This is a big chapter. By the end of the chapter, we're hoping to be able to differentiate pretty much any function you can think of. So that includes exponentials and logs and trig and products and fractions and all sorts, and compound functions and all sorts. So in this video, we're going to start by looking at differentiating sine x and cos x. We're going to do it from first principles. This is something that you need to know. As you may remember, first principles differentiation is pretty complicated, so you could feel free to come back to this later on once you've seen how to use derivatives of sine and cos, but at some point you've got to do it. All right, let's jump in to differentiating sine and cos from first principles. All right, so in order to do this, we need to remind ourselves what first principles differentiation is. First principles differentiation is when you take a section of some function, you imagine a point on that function that you want to work out the gradient of the tangent at that function to. And how we do it is we imagine a point just a little way along, and what we actually work out is the gradient of the line segment connecting these 2 points, so this line here. And we can do that because gradient is just change in y divided by change in x, so we're just working out change in y divided by change in x, and we come up with an expression for what the gradient of that red line is, and then we algebraically slide this point down until it gets closer and closer and closer and closer, and as it becomes infinitely close, the gradient of that red line will be the same as the gradient of the tangent. So how on earth do we do that for sine and cos? Well, let's try. We're going to start by looking at sine x. So let's say I want to work out the gradient of the tangent to the curve at this point here. The x coordinate is some arbitrary point x, and the y value is, of course, sine x. I'm going to pick a point a little way along, and in fact it's going to be x plus h along, so a small amount h. You'll often see h used, sometimes delta. It's just anything that represents a very small amount. Well, the y value there has to be sine of x plus h. And what I'm looking for is the gradient of the straight line that connects these 2 points, which is pretty similar to the green line, but it's not quite. Okay, change in y divided by change in x. So the change in y divided by the change in x is sine of x plus h minus sine of x, and all of that is divided by, well, x plus h minus x is just h. Now my strategy is this. In the end I want to send h to 0, so it's like sliding my point here down, 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 down to that point. I can't do that now because then I'd be dividing by 0, so I'm going to have to do some work on this. So we're actually going to use our addition formula for sine, and we're going to expand this and then explore what's going on. So expanding this using my addition formula, I get sine A cos B plus sine B cos A. And there was still a minus sine x there, and all of that is still divided by h. Now what I'm going to do, my strategy here is I'm going to split this expression up into how many sine x's have I got and how many cos x's have I got. So just factorising the top, I can see that I've got sine x, and then I've got cos h here, and then I've got minus 1 sine x there, so minus 1. And then how many cos x's have I got? Well, it's just sine of h. And all of that is still sitting over h. Okay, let's continue over here. So what I've got is my change in y divided by my change in x is, well, let's actually split this up into 2 terms added together. I've got how many sine x's? Well, I've got cos h minus 1 over h. And how many cos x's have I got? Well, I've got sine of h divided by h. Right, in order to think what happens when h gets really, really small, I'm actually going to use small angle approximations, because remember, we've got these small angle approximations which tell us what sine h and cos h are approximately equal to when h is really small. And we're going to make h really small. In fact, we're going to make it infinitely small. So that means that our approximations will become infinitely accurate. So remind yourself what these small angle approximations are. We've got sine of theta is approximately equal to theta when theta is really small, and we've got cos of theta is approximately equal to 1 minus theta squared over 2. Remember, and this is important, this only works, small angles approximations only work in radians. This has big implications. It means that all differentiation that we're ever going to do in our whole lives with trigonometry will always be in radians. So like the big thing, and I did think I promised this earlier in the course, why radians are so cool and so useful is that they make differentiation and integration work. So let's apply these small angle approximations now. What I can say is that when h is small, so I can even write that, when h is small, we have change in y divided by change in x is approximately equal to sine x times, and then what was cos h? Cos h when h is small is 1 minus h squared over 2. And there's still the minus 1 there, and that's still all divided by h. And then we've got cos x here, and then sine h is approximately equal to h. Okay, neatened up, what's going on? Well, I've got 1 minus 1, which is 0, and I've got minus h squared over 2 divided by h, which is just minus h over 2. And h over h is just 1, so that's just cos x. Now we've got it into a position where we can send h to 0. We're not going to be dividing by 0 if we do, which means I can do this magic final step of saying that the derivative, that's the limit as h goes to 0, so the limit as h tends to 0 of sine x multiplied by minus h over 2 plus cos x is, drum roll, well, minus h over 2 if h goes to 0 is just 0. So that bracket just kills this term. I've got no sine x, it's sine x times 0, but I do have this cos x surviving. And there's the magic result. If y equals sine x, dy by dx is cos x. Beautiful result there. So all along we've known, or maybe for years, what sine x and cos x are, and now we know that that cos x is just the derivative of sine x, which tells me if I'm looking at a sine curve and I want to know the gradient at any point, it's just cos of the x value. Beautiful stuff. Okay, let's do the same, but for cos x. I encourage you to pause this or spend some time looking through the proof for sine x and try and do something equivalent for cos x. Okay, have you had a go? I hope so. So we're now looking at the curve of y equals cos x, which means I pick a point on the graph here. X coordinate is just some arbitrary x, and the y coordinate is cos x. And then here's a point a little way along with x coordinate x plus a little bit, and y coordinate cos of x plus a little bit. And my job is to work out the gradient of this line in terms of h. So change in y, notice my terminology here, it's change in y divided by change in x, not dy by dx. dy by dx is the limit as h goes to 0, and we're not there yet. So change in y divided by change in x is cos of x plus h minus cos x, and the change in x is x plus h minus x, which is just h. I can use the addition formula for cos to expand this, and I'll get cos A cos B minus sine A sine B, and then still minus cos x, and still divided by h. Now, just as we did in the proof for sine, which I'll flip back to here, we're going to figure out how many sine x's have I got and how many cos x's have I got. So how many sine x's have I got? Well, I've got sine x multiplied by minus sine h. Minus sine h. So that's how many sine x's I've got. How many cos x's have I got? Well, I've got cos h of them here, minus 1 of them here. And all of that is over h. Once again, I'll split this up to say, in terms of my sine x's, change in y divided by change in x, I've got sine x multiplied by minus sine h over h. And how many cos x's have I got? Well, it's cos h minus 1 over h. All I've done is I've tucked that divide by h into each of the fractions here. Now we can use small angle approximations. Okay, so remember that sine of h is approximately equal to h when h is small, and it's going to get very small, which means this is approximately equal to sine x times minus h over h. And then for the coses, well, cos of h is approximately equal to 1 minus h squared over 2, and there's still the minus 1, and it's still divided by h. So neatened up, that's just minus 1, so I've just got minus sine x here. And for the cos x, well, it's cos x multiplied by, well, 1 minus 1 is 0, and minus h squared over 2 over h is minus h over 2. And now I can send h to 0. So I can say that dy by dx is the limit as h goes to 0 of this expression, minus sine x plus cos x times minus h over 2. And as h goes to 0, well, the minus sine x survives, but the cos x gets multiplied by 0 over 2, minus 0 over 2, which is just 0. So that destroys that, and I'm left just with minus sine x. So there it is. The derivative of sine x was cos x, and the derivative of cos x was minus sine x. A beautiful relationship. Okay, final thing to look at is what's the derivative of sine of kx, where k is a number, and cos of kx, where k is, it's just some constant. So this is a special case of something called the chain rule, which we'll be looking at in a lot of detail later on. But we can get a good intuition about what this is now. Say that we were looking for the derivative of sine 2x. Well, if sine x looks like this, what does sine of 2x look like? Well, we know from our graph transformations work that sine of 2x, that's like an f of 2x function, is just squashed in by a factor of 2. And it looks like this. Okay, so it just oscillates twice as frequently and looks like this. So what can we say about the derivatives at any points? Well, looking at this point here where x equals 0, you can see that it's got steeper, like it is steeper than the black line there. And at all points, in fact, the graph here is exactly twice as steep as the equivalent gradient on sine x. So yes, it's 0 here, just like it's 0 down here, but it goes down twice as steeply as this one does, and it curves off at twice the rate that this one does. What this tells us, intuitively, we haven't quite proved it, but it tells me intuitively that if y equals sine of 2x, the gradient dy by dx is double what it would have been if it were just sine x. The derivative of sine x is cos x, so the derivative here will be 2 cos 2x. So it's not just cos 2x, it's double that. We can generalize this as follows. If y is sine kx, where k is a constant, the derivative of that is k times cos kx. The angle never changes, that's really important. If y is cos of kx and we differentiate it, we still get minus a sine function, but it's minus k times sine of kx. So as I said, these are special cases of something called the chain rule, which we'll look at more later on, but we're going to actually use these cases now. All right, I hope that's been interesting and useful, looking at first principles differentiation and how to differentiate sine k of x. I'll see you in the next video.